We were in a serious firefight now. Last shots and hard rounds whipped in all directions. Fishik and Har laid down heavy cover fire. Kara and Banquin selected targets more particularly and hit most of them. Bagundi blazed away with his matched handguns. I fired carefully, cautiously, keeping the old priest behind me. Razzie's fission lock pepper pot banged and sparked and then hailed lead balls at the enemy. Every few seconds he raised his cane and sent forth a drizzle of psychothermic flame from the silver tip. "Brace yourselves!" I yelled. "You especially, Paul." He nodded. "Reveal yourselves," I urged, using the will at full force. Such a raw outburst would usually have floored all those around me, but Har, Bagundi, and Kara had already been mentally conditioned during rigorous training to black out my psi string. Baquin was untouchable, and Fishik wore a torque that protected him. Rossi, forewarned, put up a metal wall. The old priest screamed, stood up, and wet himself. He wasn't the only one to stand up. Our attackers rose into view, each one clutching a smoking weapon, each one blinking in dumb confusion. Bagundi, Fishig, and I cut them all down in a few lethal seconds. Victory. For a moment. Suddenly, Dronicus was running away down the street, and Rassi was doubled up by convulsions. I felt it too. A sudden jolt in the background, psychonic resonance, like painfully bright flash of light. I staggered back and slammed into the side of the nearest hut. Blood spurted out of my nose. Bagundi and Kara fell to their knees. Har sat down hard, sobbing. Even Fishig, protected by his torque, felt it and staggered. Elizabeth, the only one unmoved, glanced around us and yelled, "What? What is it?" I knew where it had come from. The hangar. I struggled upright in time to see the hangar roof quiver and buckle as something broke through it from inside. Something huge that smashed the entire roof panels out of the way as it got to its feet. It must have been lying down in the hangar, I realized. Now it was rising and activated. What we had felt had simply been the backwash of its mind link going live. With dreadful certainty, I realized that Fade Thuring was going to be damn near impossible to stop. I had made an unbelievable, unforgivable mistake. I had underestimated him and his resources. He was nothing like the minor warp dabbler I had once let slip away. He had a titan. Emperor damn him. He had a battle titan. Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. We are back with Eisenhorn. We'll come back to our good friend Fabius Ball later, but I want to explore more of this, our good friend Eisenhorn. Be he heretic? Be he loyal? There have been many debate about that in the Imperium of Mankind. Eisenhorn is such a wonderfully complex hero. I don't know if he counts as an anti-hero. I'd have to do a little bit more back reading in my English degree text to figure that out. I'm sure someone else has and will comment below. But Eisenhorn is such an interesting character. So to bring us up to where we are right now, our last venture into Eisenhorn, we kind of skip to the end, where he and his party are under attack by a Chaos Battle Titan. We talked about what Titans are. You don't want to fight a Titan on your own. And he and his friends were under attack. There was no way for them to bring down this Titan. And Eisenhorn summons a demon to take down the Titan. So now we're backing up to see how the scenario even happened, and we will work our way forward to the summoning of Cherubal. To understand how Eisenhorn got to this point where he's even got a demon to summon, we have to look at his career and how he got to this point. Eisenhorn's central enemy, kind of like his Moriarty, as would be to Sherlock Holmes, would be a gentleman, a person, creature, whatever, by the name of Pontius Glaw. Not to overstay my welcome on the YouTubes here, but there's a lot of history with the Pontius Glaw. Pontius Glaw, in a nutshell, huge heretic, loved the chaos, had his consciousness transferred into, I don't know, a brain orb? What do you call it? And even in his desiccated state where he is just a consciousness in a machine, is able to cause so much havoc in the Imperium of mankind through his ability to contact and use denizens of the warp. What does any of this have to do with Cherubal? Well, I'm so glad you asked. In looking for the heretic Pontius Glaw, Eisenhorn in his journeys encounters a lot of heretical cults. And he sees some things. It even takes him into battle and eventually killing the heretic Quixos, which that's a huge battle. It's in the book. You gotta go read that. That's good stuff. But he never would have been embroiled in any of that had he not been on the search for Glaw. Glaw is kind of the linchpin in Eisenhorn's story, and how he even gets to a position to be somewhere where he should be in contact with a being like Cherubal. Pontius Glaw, being the disembodied brain spirit that he is, when Eisenhorn actually finally encounters him, he captures him and actually keeps his brain orb thing prisoner for quite some time so he can take him out and question him once in a while. Do with that information what you will. That's another analysis for another day. But in those conversations, kind of the way, if you've ever seen Silence of the Lambs, the way that Clarice goes and interviews Hannibal Lecter to learn about what old Bill might be out there doing, because they are like-minded individuals. That's kind of what Eisenhorn was using Glaw for in his disembodied brain state. He would turn him on, ask him questions, talk with him, borderline felt like they were friends in some of the conversations, but then turn him off when he was done getting whatever he needed out of a particular interaction. And through different breadcrumbs that the Glaw is dropping, helps guide Eisenhorn's journeys. Now, Eisenhorn's in a position over Glaw in his brain capsule state. I don't know how many more ways I can rephrase that. But in the state that he's in, he thinks he has the upper hand. He thinks that he has conquered the Glaw. And he doesn't know that he's playing checkers and Pontius Glaw is playing chess. Pontius Glaw is giving him information, and you don't realize this till you get to the end. He's giving him information to guide Eisenhorn in the direction he needs him to go, so that he can then get to his next level of being. Eventually, Eisenhorn doesn't need the Glaw anymore, and he destroys him, and he thinks Pontius Glaw is gone. But remember, this is our book's Moriarty. Moriarty never goes away, and the Glaw did not go away. The Glaw just got bigger, badder, different set of powers. It was because of Glaw's information that Eisenhorn was able to find Quixos. And Quixos had created the original Daemon host that had trapped Cherubal. Initially, Eisenhorn banish Cherubal back to the warp, as he did with Profanti, another demon host that had been discovered. And that should have been the end of it. They just should have stayed banished, and we wouldn't be here talking about it. But what's the fun in the story if there's no conflict? That's like the whole point of writing. There's got to be a conflict to explore. So with the getting rid of Pontius Glaw as far as Eisenhorn is concerned, he's actually basically just released a malevolent spirit into the cosmos. And to banish a demon to the warp requires certain knowledge that a good citizen of the Imperium of Man honestly shouldn't have. Where did he get that knowledge? So just like the Imperium of Man in their worship of the Emperor has the Lectitio Divinitatis, the holy book, the denizens of Chaos have one as well, and those who have allegiance to Chaos, the Warp, and all those things, they got a book, and it's called the Necrotouch. And throughout his journeys, Eisenhorn encounters this tome as he is trying to, root out the heretic amongst different cults, and actually opts to destroy that book. And we all know where he would have now gotten the knowledge to banish and summon demons. And then that's what makes this really interesting. So, they're getting attacked by a battle titan. Not just a titan, a chaos titan. Now let me draw on my martial arts experience for a second. Fighting a battle titan, I would imagine, would be like fighting a drunk person. You can hit them, but they don't know. They don't know they've been hit. As someone who practices, the fisticuffs, Taekwondo, I very well understand needing to have a certain set of skills if you need them. Now, there's a lot of stuff that I know how to do that I don't just go out doing to people. I'm pretty good with, good quick release moves, things that help me get away, stuff like that. But I don't go out looking for reasons to use it. I don't go out looking for reasons to apply my knowledge of pressure points to the general public. That would be really bad advertising, or good for some people, for the sport. So you have the knowledge, but I've never used the knowledge. I purposely choose to live my life in such a way that hopefully I shouldn't have to. However, I'd rather have that knowledge and not need it than ever be in a situation where I need that knowledge, I need those skills, but I don't have it. And there's the rub with Eisenhorn in what he knows. If Eisenhorn had not peeked at the Necrotouch, if he had not had conversations with the Glaw over and over, if he hadn't been chasing down cults or chased after Quixos and knew of Cherubal's existence and how to summon him, what would they have done that day? They're out investigating other cults, they're talking to people, they're doing their thing, they're under attack, they think they've gotten all their attackers, and then a building comes after you. A building that's possessed by chaos and evil. There's the drunk guy. You can't hit him and knock him down. There's nothing that they have available to them that can fight this battle. Except for Eisenhorn knowing how to summon a demon out of the warp. That's what makes him such a beautifully complex character. Is it a question of him being loyal to the Imperium or heretic? Or is this an observation of someone gaining knowledge to put in their back pocket in case they might ever need that knowledge? I don't know. That's why we're talking about it. Eisenhorn begins his life as an Inquisitor at 24 years old. He begins his life as an Inquisitor as a Puritan, which means he has the zealot belief of the Imperium of Mankind. He believes the absolutes of the world that he's in. There is no gray area. There is no black and white. But experience and time have led him to bend the rules. But the problem with some rules is that they don't bend, they break. There is no use a daemon host or kind of use a daemon host. There's no in between using them and not using them. You either can summon a demon out the warp, which is super heretical, or you can't because you never went looking for that knowledge. But again, if he didn't have that knowledge, that skill, that ability, what would have happened to them on that day? Now, to be fair, there are several instances in Eisenhorn's career where he's called a heretic, and then they call him innocent. They call him a heretic, then they investigate, and they're like, you know what, fine. Because let's be real, as long as people are getting the result, and they're not hurting the masses, as humans, we have a tendency to overlook certain things as long as the result is what we wanted. As long as the ends justify the means, so is even the Imperium of Man as loyal to itself as it says. Because you have to remember the future that they're living in. You know, this ain't Star Trek in the world of Warhammer 40K. You know, one of my favorite shows right now is Lower Decks. So great. It's going to be my new greatest cosplay because let me tell you, Beckett Mariner is me. They didn't make her up. Yeah. Sidebar. Sorry. But you look at the shiny future of Star Trek, of humans living in an optimal world where we go out and we find all of these other creatures on different planets that are intelligent, and we just form this federation, and nobody has to starve because food gets replicated, and everybody has enough space, and there's a place and position and purpose for everyone in Starfleet, in the Federation. That's not Warhammer. In the future, there is only war. And I think Warhammer is more accurate to how we would really show up in space. You know, Warhammer is grimy. It's dirty. It's gritty. It is humans in a fight for survival. Because to the Imperium they belong to, they're all expendable. There are countless billions of people who are in the Imperium of Man. And not one of them means any more than another. Doesn't matter how much power you think you have. Doesn't matter if you are a lord, a planet. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you are. Everyone can be sacrificed for the will of the Emperor of Mankind. And then you got the alien, the Xenos out there. And because humans have encroached on so many worlds, even if there could have been peace amongst the Xenos, no more. Humans are an enemy to all the Xenos, the aliens out there. So if they encounter humans, it's going to be a thing. And then on top of that, you've got the warp and chaos. And the warp and chaos just exist on its own. And they just want to watch the world burn. They don't really care which world it is. They live in a world that requires them to be adaptive, whatever that adaptation might be, and to use what would benefit them the most in the moment. Because in Warhammer, no one's looking out for you. We're only looking out for the Emperor, entombed on the Golden Throne. Bless his name. You know, sign of the Aquila. How do you function in a society where it is just accepted that no one matters? That you don't matter. I don't matter. That person next to you don't matter. The only thing that matters is keeping the machine fed and running. So Eisenhorn has a skill. In a moment where that skill is needed, he shows everybody he's got a secret that no one knew he had. And it's a turning point. But let's read a little more. Eisenhorn. Reading from Hereticus, Chapter 4. Cruor Vult. Fleeing the Giant. A terrible long shot. Its name was Cruor Vult. It weighed 2,500 tons and stood 60 meters tall. Like a great warlord-class battle titan, it was a biped, almost humanoid in its proportions. Hooved with immense three-toed feet of articulated metal, its massive legs supported a colossal pelvic mount at the great riveted torso that housed its throbbing atomic furnaces. Broad shoulders provided ample space for turbo laser batteries. Beneath the shoulder armor, the Titan's arms elevated the machine's primary weapons. A Gatling blaster as the right fist, a plasma cannon as the left. The head was comparatively small, though I knew it was large enough to contain the entire command deck. It was set low down between the shoulders, making the monster ogreish and hunched. I have seen Titans before. They are always a terrifying sight. Even the Imperial battle Titans are awful to behold. The Adeptus Mechanicus, who forge and maintain the war machines for the benefit of mankind, regard them as gods. They are perhaps the greatest mechanical artifacts the human race has ever manufactured. We have made more powerful things. The starships that can cross the void, negotiate the warp space, and reduce continents to ashes with their ordnance. And we have made more technically sophisticated things. The latest generations of fluid core autonomous corrugators. But we have made nothing as sublime as the Titan. They are built for war alone. They are created only to destroy. They carry the most potent armaments of any land-based fighting vehicle anywhere. Only fleet warships can bring greater firepower to bear. Their image, bulk, their sheer size is intended to do nothing except terrorize and demoralize the foe. And they are alive. Not as you or I would understand it, perhaps. But there is an intellect burning inside the mind impulse that connects the drivers to the crew and to the Titan's function. Some say they have a soul. Only the priests of Mars, the adepts and the tech mages of the cult Mechanicum truly understand their secrets. And they guard that lore ruthlessly. Perhaps the only thing more terrifying than a battle titan is a chaos battle titan. The infamous metal leviathans of the arch enemy. Some are more parodied from the Imperial originals, sacrilegious perversions of the Martian god machines. Others are ancient Imperial Titans corrupted during the Great Heresy, traitor legions that have lurked in the Eye of Terror for 10,000 years in defiance of the Emperor's will. Which this was, frankly, I cared little. It looked deformed, blistered with rust, draped with razor wire, and covered with blade studs that sprouted like thorns. What I first took to be strings of yellow beads hanging from its shoulders and blade studs were actually chains of human skulls. Thousands of them. Its metal was dull, dirty, black, and inscribed with the unutterable runes of chaos. Its head was leering skull, plated in glinting chrome. Its name was Rotten Blast on a placard across its gigantic chest. It stepped forward, and the ground shook. The ruptured roof panels of the hangar squealed as they tore and caved in around its wing thighs. It strode through the fabric of the hangar like a man wading through a stream. The building's front burst out and fell away with a tremendous crash as the Titan broke its way through. And then it howled. Great vox horns fixed to the sides of its skull blared out a berserk war cry of the monster. It was so painfully loud, so deep in the infrasonic register, that it reflexively triggered primal fear and panic in us. The earth shook even more than it had done under the weight of its footsteps. It was coming our way. Now it was clear of the hangar. I could see the long segmented tail it dragged and whipped behind it. "Move," I said, directing with all my colleagues in the hope of snapping them into some sort of rational response. Every few seconds, the rock under our feet vibrated as it took another step. We started to run through the streets of the deserted station, trying to keep as much of the buildings as possible between us and it. Our advantage was our size. We could evade it by staying hidden. With a metallic screech of badly lubricated joints, it slowly turned its head and waist to look in our direction, and then stomped heavily round to follow us. It walked straight through a longhouse, shattering it like matchwood. "It knows where we are," Rassi cried desperately. "How can it?" Har whined. Military-grade sensors, heavy-duty auspex, devices so powerful that they could have overcome the island's magnetic distortions. This beast had been made to fight in horrifically inhospitable theaters, resisting toxins, radiations, vacuums, bombardments. It needed to be able to see and hear and smell and target in the middle of hell. The local magnetics that had bested our civilian instruments were nothing to it. "It's so big," Bakewin stammered. Another crash, another longhouse kicked over and splintered, a squeak of protesting metal as a derelict troop truck was pulverized underfoot. We turned back, running back almost the other way now, passing south of the chapel and the command center. Again, with an echoing grind of engaging joints, it came about and renewed its inexorable pursuit. I felt a spasm, a pulse on a psychic level. I was feeling the surge and flicker of its mind, an impulse link. "Get down!" I yelled. The gathering blaster opened fire. The sound was a single blur of noise. A huge cone of flaming gas flickered and twitched around the blaster muzzle. A storm of destruction reigned around us. Hundreds of high explosive shells hosed the street, blitzing the fronts of buildings, pulping them. Firestorms sucked and rushed down the streets. Billions of cinders and debris scarps sprayed around. The stench of thylacine was chokingly strong. I got up in a blizzard of ash and setting sparks. We were still alive, if chronically dazed by the concussive force. Either the Titan's targeting systems were offset, or the crew were still getting used to its operation. The sensors might be capable of tracking our movement, but the Titan still had to get its eye in. Perhaps it could only sense us in a general way. "We can't fight that," said Fischig. He was right. We couldn't. We had nothing. This was so one-sided it wasn't even tragic. But we couldn't run either. Once we left the cover of the station's buildings, we would be in an open and easy target. "What about the gun cutter?" blurted Elizabeth. No, I said. "Even the cutter hasn't got enough kill power. It might make a dent, but it wouldn't stand a chance. That thing would shoot it out of the sky before it even got close." "But..." "No, it's not an option." "What is then?" she wanted to know. "Dying. Is that an option?" And that is where we will pick up next time. I hope you enjoyed that. They are in it. I mean, I know what I would do if there was a Chaos Battle Titan chasing me across a planet. But what's the right choice? Let's keep reading to find out. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.